Well, it's official. The Pittsburgh Penguins have made their second front office hire under Kyle Dubas, and I'm going to go into why this is a very good move for the team right after this.
You're Locked On Penguins, your daily podcast on the Pittsburgh Penguins, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello, welcome back to another episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast. I am your host, Hunter Hodes. Remember to follow me on Twitter at Hunter Hodes. Follow the show's Twitter at LA for Penguins. And of course, thank you all so much for making this your first listen / watch of the day. We are free and available on all platforms. Happy Monday to you all. And this is going to be a very hectic week around the NHL. You have the draft coming up in the next 2 to 3 days, free agency right after. And on top of those two things, it is trade season. The Penguins are going to be involved in all three, in at least some capacity. That's why you got to keep it right here on Locked On Penguins for everything relating to the team. But before we get into all that craziness and my picks for the NHL Awards tonight, we do have to discuss a hire that the Penguins announced on Monday morning, and that is Vukie Mpofu as Director of Hockey Operations and Legal Affairs. He comes to the Penguins after spending the previous 2 seasons with the Los Angeles Kings as their Manager of Hockey Operations and Legal Affairs. So he'll basically have the same role, but it's a quote-unquote promotion since he's now the Director of Hockey Operations. With the Kings, he assisted with player contract negotiations and helped manage their salary cap. Before that, he worked as an intern for the Vegas Golden Knights and was part of their hockey legal affairs department. With the Penguins, again, he will be assisting with player contract negotiations, ensuring compliance with the CBA and salary cap, and he'll take an active role leading the Penguins hockey research and development department. This move, number one, shows the Penguins are going with a very young and a very progressive front office. Mpofu is only 27 years old. I'm going to throw myself under the bus here a little bit. The fact that I'm 25 and I'm only 2 years younger than him shows that I am getting old here, my friends. But this is a front office. You're not really going to see many dinosaurs working under Dubas. I think the Penguins want to get back to the front office that they had under Jim Rutherford, where they had a bunch of up-and-coming people in hockey operations leadership that could, eventually get GM jobs one day. Remember when under Rutherford, the Penguins had the likes of Tom Fitzgerald, Jason Botterill, Billy Guerin, and Jason Carmanos? They were all on the same staff. They did different things, but they were all on the same staff. Look where they are now. Jason Botterill was a GM in Buffalo. He's now in Seattle. Billy Guerin, GM of the Minnesota Wild. Tom Fitzgerald, GM of the New Jersey Devils. Carmanos is in Buffalo as assistant general manager. That front office was awesome, and I think the Penguins are trying to get back to having a similar front office like that. And the Penguins, they haven't really had a salary cap wizard since Jason Botterill left to be the GM in Buffalo. That's how long it's been. Alex Shaw was the guy under Hextall, but he didn't really do that good of a job because the Penguins always bungled the salary cap under Hextall. So the fact that they're hiring someone who knows what they're doing when it comes to the cap based off his work in Los Angeles is a big deal. Even if the Penguins have $20 million in cap space. And I believe it's thundering outside. We're about to get a massive thunderstorm here in Pittsburgh. But just look at his work with the Kings. His fingerprints are all over it. Outside of Drew Doughty and Anze Kopitar, the Kings don't really have too many insane contracts. I'll even go a step further. I don't really think they have many quote-unquote bad contracts on their cap-friendly. Doughty and Kopitar. You have Kevin Fiala, who signed at a reasonable rate, $7.875 million, for the next several years. You have Philip Deneau, who signed for the next 4 years at 5.5. Kempe, same cap hit, but for 3. Arvidsson, a little over 4. Trevor Moore, 5 years, $4.2 million. Alex Iafallo, 4 years. Then you have a bunch of cheap RFAs. You have Gavrikov, short-term, big cap hit. Mikey Anderson, 24, but signed for the next 6-7 seasons at $4.125 million. And then Phoenix Copley, $1.5 million to be their backup goalie. They don't really have any horrendous deals, and that's why they have $9 million in cap space to play with right now, and they're taking on a Pierre-Luc Dubois. Mpofu is in a really nice job with the Kings and their salary cap situation. When you're coming over from Rob Blake, you know you do a good job because Blake has a really good front office around him. Ever since he took that job in Los Angeles, he has built a really nice hockey operations leadership. And it's been rare when you see the Kings mess up under his leadership. So I'm a big fan of this hire. And again, even though the Penguins have upwards of $20 million in cap space, there are still some deals that you can easily argue that need to be moved, like a Mikhail Granlund, like a Jeff Petrie, like a Jan Ruda. And someone like Mpofu can help you out in that regard and help the Penguins get more cap space so maybe they can land an even better player or two in a trade, in free agency, maybe even after this year, at next year's trade deadline, at next year's draft and free agency, because he'll be here, I think, for the long haul. This is a great asset to have in hockey operations. And again, he's only 27. He's going to have plenty of room to grow, especially if Dubas stays for the long haul. So I am all for a front office getting younger, getting more progressive, and especially hiring someone who can really manage the cap to make sure that the Penguins don't bungle it nearly as badly as they did when Ron Hextall was the general manager. Another thought that came to my mind when this hire was announced, what does this mean for Brandon Pridham? Because when you look at his duties under Dubas and what he's going to be doing under Brad Treliving, they're basically the same. He was Dubas's right-hand man and worked exclusively with the salary cap. Does that take him out of the running for the GM job? Personally, my opinion, I think they're either going to go with a quote-unquote data guy to be the GM, or it's just going to be Dubas running the show himself, and they're not going to be hiring a GM. I honestly think this takes him out of the running for Pridham, because if you were to hire him and make him GM, it would just be redundant because he basically does what Mpofu does. So I personally don't think they're going to go after Pridham now. I still wouldn't be surprised, but I think, again, his hiring would just be a little redundant. I think if they do hire a GM, you're just going to see a quote-unquote, hockey math guy, just an analytics guy as the GM. So that's where my thought went when it came to what was going on with the next hire. But I really like the front office that Dubas is building right now, and I'm curious to see what else he does with this front office and who else he brings in. So that'll do it for this first segment of the Locked On Penguins podcast. Coming up in the second segment, we're going to get into my picks for the NHL Awards. That's coming up on Monday night. It'll be televised by TNT. And then later on in the show, we'll get into some trades that are starting to happen and what the Penguins could be involved in later on this week. So that's what's coming up a little later on in the show. But before we get to that, we have to discuss one of the newer sponsors of Locked On, eBay Motors. For a championship team, it's all about making sure every player is a perfect fit. And it's the same when it comes to your vehicle. Every part needs to fit just right. So the next time you need parts and accessories, you can head to eBay Motors. With eBay Guaranteed Fit, you can be sure every part you need fits right the first time around. Just add your ride to My Garage and look for the green check to know the part will fit, or you'll get your money back. Just like in sports, confidence is the name of the game when you shop on eBay Motors. And with over 122 million parts to choose from, you'll be back in the game in no time. After all, it's easy to bring home a win when the right parts are guaranteed. Get the right parts, the right fit, and the right prices on ebaymotors.com. That's right. eBay Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. All right, we're back in this episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast. I am your host, Hunter Hodes. Remember to follow me on Twitter at Hunter Hodes. Follow the show's Twitter at Penguins. And of course, thank you all so much for making this your first listen/watch of the day. We are free and available on all platforms. So let's get into my picks for the NHL Awards ceremony, which will take place from Nashville on Monday night. Starting with Connor McDavid, 64 goals, 153 points. He is my easy pick for the Hart Trophy. It's him and there's everyone else. He put up numbers that we haven't seen in quite some time. He is the best player in the world. It's not close. When you take McDavid off the Oilers, they're not even a playoff team. I don't care what you're going to say about Leon Draisaitl. I know he's great. Same thing with Ryan Nugent-Hopkins. No offense, people. They are not, and they will never be Connor freaking McDavid. McDavid should win this unanimously, in my opinion. After that, we have the Norris. I'm going to go with Erik Karlsson, though you can easily make a great case for Kel McCarr despite him missing time, and Adam Fox, who was awesome again. And I understand Karlsson stinks defensively, and defense has to be taken into account when it comes to this award. It can't just all be offense. That said, I think there are exceptions to that because Karlsson was awesome this season on a garbage, and I mean an absolute garbage, Sharks team. 25 goals and 101 points on a lottery team? Come on, man. He was perhaps the biggest reason why Sharks fans even bothered to watch the team this season. They were horrible. But because he was in pursuit of 100 points, fans tuned in. He was that good for someone who is 33 years old. And he can give you a ton of offense for someone at that age. He was awesome. I would give him the Norris if I had a vote. Moving on a little bit down the list, the Vezina. This one's tough, but because it's a regular season award, I'm going to go with Linus Ullmark. Yes, people, I understand the Bruins flamed out in 7 games. They blew a 3-1 series lead. We can go through all the memes. It's funny. I know. But Ullmark was incredible. .938 save percentage, second in goals saved above expected with 42, just behind UC Saros. One of the biggest reasons why the Bruins set the all-time wins record during the regular season. Without him, that's a completely different team. And yes, you can easily make an argument for Sorokin to win this because without him, the Islanders may not even make the playoffs over the Penguins or the Panthers. Well, over the Penguins, I should say. And you can easily say the same for Hellebuck because they faltered down the stretch, and he was the only reason why that team continued to win games at times. He is awesome, but I am giving it to Ullmark if I had a vote. The Calder, Matty Beniers, 57 points this past season, 46 of those at 5-on-5. He really showed why he was one of the best young players in the NHL this past season and why there was a lot of hype about him coming into the season. He can do it all for you. He can score. He has elite vision. He can play defensively. He can play on the power play. He was one of the biggest reasons why the Kraken took a huge step forward this season. And I'm really curious to see how his development continues to progress as the years go by. But he should win the Calder, in my opinion. Jack Adams, it's probably going to go to Jim Montgomery. But honestly, friends, I would not give it to him. I would give it to Dave Hakstol. And I say that because who had the Kraken doing as well as they did this past season? I personally thought they weren't really going to be that good. And they go out, they make the playoffs, they win a round in the playoffs, they beat the defending champions, and they get within a game of going to the Western Conference Final and beating the Dallas Stars. They exceeded all expectations this past season. It's obvious that he has learned from his failures in Philadelphia, and he has transformed himself, into one of the better coaches in the NHL. And I can't even believe I'm saying that to you all, because I was very against the hire when Ron Francis initially announced it before the Kraken had even played a game. He didn't have a good first year there, but he took those failures and the ones during his time in Philly, and he just said, you know what? The hell with those. I'm going to make myself a better coach. And he did just that. Plenty of players had great years under him, including Beniers. You had McCann, who was awesome. Vince Dunn was one of the best defensemen in the league. Grubauer was awesome under him in the playoffs. Tanev was good yet again. Bjorkstrand was awesome. This is a fun team on the rise, and I am really curious to see what he can do with them next season. I would have Hakstol winning this award over everyone else. The Selke, it's Patrice Bergeron to me, and it's everyone else. Usually when he is nominated, everyone else is a guest, and for good reason. Patrice Bergeron is the best two-way forward the NHL has to offer, and honestly, my friends, it's not close. He can win you face-offs, he can score, he can pass, he can play elite defense in his own zone, and oh yeah, he can kill you penalties, and he can do all those things at an elite level despite being in his late 30s. anytime he is up for this award, he always gets my vote. Until he starts actually going down the drain and becomes quote unquote washed, I will vote for him to win this. This is his award. I think he should and will win it. GM of the year, give me Bill Zito. It takes a lot of guts to do that kind of trade last summer with trading out Huberdeau and Weegar for Tkachuk, but wow, Tkachuk gave you all that value and then some during the regular season and the playoffs. He also didn't make any panic moves when he could have at the trade deadline when the Panthers were kind of out of the playoff hunt. He said, you know what? I'm going to bet on these guys. And they sure made him feel proud when they got to within 3 games of winning their first Stanley Cup. He's also looking really good right now with the Paul Maurice hire. I'll say that. I was not a big fan of it at the time. It took a lot of balls to fire a coach like Andrew Brunette, who helped the Panthers average 3.5 to 4 goals per game, to go to Paul Maurice, who is kind of the exact opposite of a coach as Brunette is. But he is reaping the rewards right now. Curious to see if that continues next season, because sometimes some of these coaches, they have success early, then they bottom out. But I think Zito's done a really solid job since becoming the Panthers GM. He's a patient guy, can work out big trades, got the head coaching hire right. I'm interested to see what he does this summer, because I think the Panthers could use another defenseman or two with some of the players that they have hurt to start this upcoming season. The Lady Bing, give me Jack Hughes. He didn't even have 10 penalty minutes this season. He's very classy on and off the ice, had over 90 points. You can also make an argument for Joe Pavelski because he is as classy as they come. He continues to age like fine wine, 77 points, 82 games this past season. But if it were up to me, I would go Jack Hughes when it comes to that. The King Clancy, I'm going to go with Michael Backlund. Anders Lee and Darnell Nurse are also very deserving, but I'm going to go with Backlund on that one. McDavid will obviously win the Art Ross and the Rocket. The Jennings Trophy will go to Swayman and Allmark. And the Masterton, saving the best for last, it's Chris Letang. He should win this. I know he was snubbed the last time, but after his dad passed away, he suffered a second stroke, battled numerous more injuries, came back and played at an elite level again. It's Letang for me, and it's everyone else. Yeah, I know I'm a little bit biased doing a Penguins podcast, but Letang should win this award, and he would have my vote if it were up to me. But those are my thoughts and my picks for the NHL Awards that will take place later on Monday. Let me know who you think will win each award down in YouTube comments. You can also send me a DM and all that good stuff as well. But coming up to end the show, trade season is officially here, and one of my favorite Penguin targets is officially off the board. That's coming up right after this. All right, I'm back in this episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast. I am your host, Hunter Hodes. Remember to follow me on Twitter at Hunter Hodes. Follow the show's Twitter, LNL Penguins. And of course, thank you all so much for making this your first listen / watch of the day. We are free and available on all platforms. So we did see a trade today, and the Bruins, they did do a cap dump, but it wasn't to the Penguins. No, they sent Taylor Hall and the rights to UFA Nick Foligno to Chicago, as the Bruins were clearing $6 million in salary cap space, and I think they're going to be taking a run at Tyler Bertuzzi, so he could be coming off the market in the next few days. They really want to re-sign him. But Hall, he'll be getting to play with Connor Bedard. It doesn't look like he was on, or the Blackhawks, excuse me, the Blackhawks were not on his 16-team no-trade list, which is interesting to say the least. I thought they would be one of the first teams on there, but I guess maybe he updated it after the Bedard sweepstakes happened. I don't know, but he'll be playing there with Bedard. I would have loved to see him play with Evgeny Malkin or Sidney Crosby. He's a great playmaker, can score goals, can put him on the power play, but it's not meant to be. But overall, you're going to see a lot of trade action this week. And I do think the Penguins are going to be involved in that. I will say this. I think you will see them make a trade for a goalie this week. That's going to be the first move that Dubas makes. I'll even go out on a limb and predict that it's going to be Vejmelka. I'll go out and predict that. It's a bold prediction, I know, maybe a little bit, but I think that's what you're going to see happen this week before Tristan Jarry becomes an unrestricted free agent on Saturday, July 1st. But there's a lot of chatter around the league right now. You have Pierre-Luc Dubois and the Kings. If that finalizes, I would still look to them for Victor Arvidsson. That makes a lot of sense for the Penguins. Someone who can score you goals, can produce a lot of points for you. You can put him on your second power play. Cheap enough cap hit, a little only 4.2 million for this upcoming season. That's fine. Connor Garland is someone out there who I know the Canucks are trying to get rid of super badly, but there's a lot of chatter out there. And the reason teams like this, they don't really like the free agency class and they like to do their business via trades. Take a look at the free agent class, people. It's not good. It's not good at all. So it's no wonder that you're seeing a lot of trades. And again, I do think Dubas is going to make his presence known at the draft this week when it comes to a goalie. Because I don't think Tristan's going to come back. I think of the 3 unrestricted free agents that the Penguins have, the big ones, him, Dumoulin, and Zucker, he's the most likely to come back, but it's still not high. I think all 3 of them are going to walk. In terms of a Zucker replacement, if he goes, obviously it's not going to be Taylor Hall. Who are you going to target? Michael Bunting in free agency? I like him, but I'm wondering if a team is going to go, 5 times 5, 5 times 5.5 for him. I think you're better off acquiring someone via trade. And maybe that someone is a Garland. Maybe that someone is a Victor Arvidsson. Maybe it's someone like is Troy Terry from the Ducks available? He was awesome for the Ducks this past season and has been for the past couple of seasons. Yeah, they could easily build around him and Trevor Zegras and Mason McTavish and whoever they pick in the top 3, whether that's Leo Carlson, whether it's Fantilli. I personally think it's going to be Fantilli. Maybe they go off the board and take Michkov. I don't know if he would want to go to the Ducks. That's the thing. But maybe Troy Terry is available. I would love for the Penguins to get their hands on him. He has been very underrated throughout his career, can play in your top 6, has a beautiful shot, reasonable cap hit. Sign me up for that any day of the week. But it won't be Taylor Hall that will be replacing Zucker if Zucker walks. It will have to be someone else, or maybe they think someone in-house can do that. But in my opinion, my friends, I don't think the Penguins have anyone in-house that can replace Zucker. They will have to go outside the organization to replace him. But it's going to get fun. It's going to get wild. This is going to be great. Keep it right here on Locked On Penguins for everything relating to the Penguins when it comes to trade season and the draft and free agency. There's going to be a lot of content coming to the show this week. I have my big board dropping tomorrow for the show before we do a little smaller draft preview for Wednesday. I'll probably have a reaction to the Penguins making their pick on Wednesday night, but my full draft board will drop on the show on Tuesday. So that will do it for this one. Thank you all so much for listening to this episode of the Locked On Penguins podcast. I very much appreciate it. I'll be back with another episode for you all on Tuesday. Then we'll have episodes Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday. And I'll have a special bonus episode for you all on Saturday, going over the Penguins free agent signings or potential trades and my thoughts on those, and also getting into what Kyle Dubas had to say, because usually all the GM/president of hockey operations, they speak late in the afternoon on Saturday when the business has wrapped up. But again, thank you all so much for tuning in. Very appreciated. I'll be back with another episode for you all on Tuesday.